Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Welcome to the Late Boomers podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories of people creating powerful new chapters in life. I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. And today we're talking about something every late boomer can relate to, reinvention, and also creativity and the courage to keep building a meaningful life, no matter how many chapters we've already written.
Exactly. Our guest this week, Michelle Danner, is a shining example of that. She's someone who hasn't had just one successful career. She's had several. Performer, teacher, director, entrepreneur. She's constantly evolving.
And that's what's so exciting. Late boomers are at a stage in life where we've collected wisdom, experience, and very important humor, and maybe a bit of fear, too, about making big changes. Michelle's journey reminds us that it's never too late to master new skills or launch into a new passion.
Yes, and she teaches actors to use every tool they have. That's a form of empowerment. Imagine if we applied that to our own lives, using everything we've learned to create something new, instead of telling ourselves we're too old for anything.
And her filmmaking career is another great reminder. She's built an academy, trained amazing talent, raised children, and then stepped behind the camera to direct films with top-tier actors. That's the kind of energy we want to bring to our listeners.
Absolutely. Reinvention isn't just possible, it's exhilarating. And Michelle shows it can be done with creativity, discipline, humor, and heart.
You're going to love this conversation.
Yes, our guest today is an extraordinary multi-hyphenate, acclaimed acting teacher, founder of the Creative Center for the Arts and the Los Angeles Acting Conservatory, director of multiple feature films, and longtime coach to some of Hollywood's most recognizable stars.
And her newest romantic comedy, or one of her newest, is called The Italians, and it's currently streaming on Amazon Prime, and she's just wrapped Under the Stars with Toni Collette and Andy Garcia, which is streaming as well. And she's also the director of Miranda's Victim, starring Abigail Breslin and an incredible ensemble cast.
As someone trained by legends like Stella Adler and Uta Hagen, she's crafted her own technique, the Golden Box, while continuing to teach and mentor the next generation of actors.
She's a true force in the entertainment industry and a brilliant example of continued growth and creative expansion. Michelle Danner, welcome to Late Boomers.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Yes, Michelle, to start out, you've built such a multi-layered career. What drives you to keep reinventing yourself creatively?
Well, I think a certain passion for telling stories that are meaningful to me and hopefully to others in different genres. I'm always very fascinated by mysteries, real life mysteries. So when they approached me to direct Miranda's Victim, I was like, well, they must know that I watch all the Datelines and the 48 Hours, all those shows, which ironically enough, my whole entire life, I got so much, my family was like, oh, you're watching one of those shows again. And then, sure enough, this big, crime, true biopic crime story was offered to me in Miranda's Victim. But I also love comedies and I love romance. And so, I love different genres. There is not a genre that I don't like. Maybe I'll never direct a Western. That's probably possible.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
Have you even done horror films?
I directed a psychological thriller that had a little horror in it, Bad Impulse.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the criticism was that I didn't use enough blood. So
Oh,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if I'm the horror
Gross.
person.
Oh, gross.
But my son. I will produce a horror movie, his first movie that he's wrapping the screenplay on. We're gonna get it done. Um, and so, although I don't know that I'll direct it, I'll certainly champion it in my
uh,
in my son, future
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker.
and that's a horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Wow.
that's a horror film. People are gonna die in a gruesome way.
Oh,
Mm,
lots of blood in that one, huh?
Yeah, I don't think. But I always have a thing about blood, though. When I watch it, I always like the shade of blood. What's real?
mm-hmm.
That's
Like
a
the
good
real.
point.
I always go, that looks like tomato blood. That does not look real. Or this one's a little too this color. Like really, the real blood really gets you, I think.
Oh, I hope you're not stabbing your actors for it.
Well,
So,
definitely not.
so you learned from icons like Stella Adler and Uta Hagen. What were the most powerful lessons you learned from them that you still use today?
Well, from Stella was, wonderful teacher, and her script analysis. I took a class called script interpretation. It was in the 50s off Lexington Avenue. It was a theater, and she sat on the throne, and all these actors showed up. I think it was on a Monday at 5 o'clock, and she broke down Ibsen and Strindberg and Eugene O'Neill and Tennessee Williams, and it was fascinating. I learned so much about going in depth and really doing the analysis of a script and the research that it takes.
Hmm.
Uta Hagen was, all these exercises, these entrance exit exercises, the nuts and bolts of technique. That's what I learned from her. But along the way, I also met some other wonderful teachers that have passed away, such as Stephen Strumpel, who used to teach at HB Studios. I did also study with Herbert Bergdorf, and I studied
Mm.
with Bill Esper. And I was always very fascinated with the craft of acting. And so I took a lot of classes when I was a teenager. I was sitting there taking copious notes. I still have those notebooks,
Mm-hmm.
and they've aged, of
Wow.
course, those notebooks. But actually, now that I'm saying this, I should probably make copies of them. But it was extraordinary information. And I just had a fascination with the craft of acting, the different philosophies of acting, what it took to bring to life a character that would, be absolutely just fascinating to its core. Um,
Do
yeah,
you do you use those lessons on the set when you're directing?
well, you can't, the skills that you have as an acting teacher are different than when you're on set. I'm sure it
Mm-hmm.
helps. Every
Of
actor that
course.
comes on set knows that I'm also an acting teacher. Um, And so some of them are grateful for that. And some of them get a little intimidated because maybe they feel I x-ray them with a certain eye, which I probably do. But there's no time on set to be teaching acting. You better cast it
Mm,
well so you
yeah.
can offer some insights, some notes that can hopefully, bring the next take to another level.
Yeah, I get that. I'm an actor too. And I took gazillion classes with all different types of teachers. So I really relate to what you're saying. And you developed a method called Golden Box, which apparently gives actors a very wide toolkit. So what inspired you to develop that?
It was, I think, my inner belief that not one method was, by itself the only one. So when I was sitting in Stella Adler's class doing work in her class, and she always obviously encouraged actors to use their imagination and not their personal life, I would defy and use my personal life, and it worked really well. And when I was in an acting class where, Stanislavski class, where they
Mm-hmm.
talked about the method and only using your personal life, I was rebellious and used my imagination, and that worked really well too. So
Mm-hmm.
I came
Agreed.
to the conclusion that you had to embrace every methodology, and you had to stay open to finding ways that, to make choices depending on what the character is and depending what if it's what the medium is, if you're in front of the camera or if you're on stage or um, you make those choices. I think that the more knowledge the actor today has to read every technique and try things and see what works best for them.
Hmm.
I don't think
Yeah.
there's a cookie cutter thing. Everybody come to the middle and be the same. And
Right.
this is what we teach in our school. We very much customize a program designed for the individual. Every actor has their own uniqueness, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to see what works for them.
Can you give us an example of that? Because if every actor has his or her own uniqueness, how would you tailor your golden box method to them?
Well, for instance, if somebody comes and says, I don't really, I've had a tough childhood and I don't want to use that. I don't want to use my personal triggers. Well, then, maybe Meisner is it? We have a program where we have Meisner classes. That could be a good class. There's a teacher that teaches very much, the Stella Adler method, so that could be a good class. We would, I think, shy away
Mm-hmm.
from them working on the Stanislavski method, on the Lee Strasberg method, where you use, effective memories that have to do with your personal life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they just need a little improvisation to get out of their head and realize that, when you get out of your head and you use your imagination, you don't have to go, oh, I got to find something in my personal life that works. You can go
Right. Right.
with the flow of what, the moment is.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. That is so interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Just to pivot a bit, um, many late boomers feel like it's too late to start something new. And for you, you continue to start new things. What would you say to someone who wants to reinvent but feels stuck or even afraid?
Well, I mean, I've watched this in my parents. My father never felt that it was too late. He would just try anything until the very end. Um, I thought that was a great way to age, to not give yourself limitations, especially the great thing about aging is really stopping to care about what other people think.
Oh, I
You
love that.
just really don't really care. Even now, I have a movie that's out and there's good reviews, great, and there's bad reviews, fine. I don't care. I really don't care. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that I think that that's one of the great. And my mother never wanted to try anything new. My father would go everywhere until the very last moment. He would just go anywhere, travel. Even at the last moment, we're going to take a road trip and go to Santa Barbara. And she never wanted to try anything new, but it worked for her. I mean, she lived until 87. She preserved herself, and she took care of herself in a different way. But she felt that there were limitations. So I really watched my two parents age with two complete different philosophies of life. And
Mm-hmm.
looking at both of them, I certainly thought it would be more fun to embrace the first one.
Were
It
you
sounds like it to me too,
Wait,
for sure.
I'm curious though, did you first emulate your mom and then your dad, or were you always just like your dad?
I think I was always like my dad. We're four girls. My dad always said I was the one that was the most like him. To give you a little context, my dad became the president of the William Morris Agency in the 60s, and he
Oh.
opened the very first offices in Paris, France. And so
Wow.
we moved to Paris. We ended up in this beautiful castle in the outskirts of Paris.
Oh.
And every weekend, it seemed like we took visitors to Versailles, to the Palais of Versailles. And my dad would take me to work all the time. I'd play under his desk. I was privy to huge stars coming in into the office, talking about their careers and their vision boards. Um, and when I became a teenager, I started to work with my dad, very much what my son is doing now. So it's being passed down from generation to generation. And so I worked with my dad and I traveled with my dad. And it was a great time. I'll always cherish that. I learned so much from him and the way he was. He was a very liked person. People really respected him and liked
Mm-hmm.
him. And he was very human. Even though he did a lot of business, humanity was the most important thing to him. And I've watched business partners, screw him over, but he never did. He always had a code of conduct that had an
Mm-hmm.
incredible integrity.
Hmm.
Um, and so,
Nice.
yeah, and he really was a people's person. He really helped people. He was connected to people. He would talk to strangers and help them. And he was honest to a fault. Once he found a suitcase in a taxi cab in New York City with $10,000 in it. And they were like unmarked bills, like smaller bills. He could have kept it. But he turned it in. And at the time, remember, it was the 60s. So $10,000, I don't know, is what, maybe $100,000
Wow.
today.
That was a lot
Yeah.
of money then.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was that
yeah.
kind of a person, but also
What
he was
what was his full name?
Alexander Valdez. He changed his name because during the war, his family fled to Lima, Peru. So his real name was Keller. His father and his brother died in concentration camps,
Oh,
but
oh.
he and
Mm.
his other brother took the ship and went to Lima, Peru, and had their childhood there. But my father left fairly young, and he traveled, and he didn't do the mailroom at the William Morris. He was
Oh,
so talented and full of ideas and entrepreneurial that they immediately asked him to open the office and be the president of the William
Wow. From
Morris.
the mailroom, that's a big step.
No, but he didn't do
no,
the
he
mail.
didn't do the
Never.
mailroom.
Oh, who he
And
didn't.
he was a great dad. He would pick me up, once in the eighth grade. He came, especially, he was in Tokyo closing a deal, but it was my first day of school. And he came especially to take me for my first day of school and then turned around and went right back to the airport to go finish the deal. And I remember he traveled a lot during my childhood. And he always called me and he always remembered about that test and that, birthday party I went to. He was a very hands-on dad, even though he traveled a lot.
Very
Whoa.
special. Well, tell us about your film, The Italians, with such a joyful romantic vibe. What drew you to that story?
Well, spoiler alert, at the end, the last card of the movie, it says from my mother, Loredana. So my mother
Oh,
was born in Milano, Italy.
Ah.
And, she inspired this story. Lisa Visca wrote the play, and then I inspired her to write the screenplay in turn. And it's a
mm-hmm.
beautiful story about a family that holds grudges. They,
Mm.
fight. I always say in my family, when you sat down for dinner, you never knew exactly when the spaghetti was going to fly, but at a certain point it was going to. And it's the same in the Italians. But ultimately, even with all that craziness and that, dysfunction and that fighting, love is always at the core of it. And when there's love, there's the ability to forgive. And those
Mm.
themes drew me to the story of the Italians. Um, I think it's important. Life is short, so you have to find a way to reconcile and to forgive and to let, bygones be bygones. And so I really liked the story, and I like working a lot of times with the same actors. So me and
Mm.
Rob Estes had done a play 20 years back in LA called The Rose Tattoo by Tennessee Williams. And that play had not
Right.
been
Mm-hmm.
produced in 18 years. And him and I, you know, uh, carved out a wonderful relationship on stage. We had great chemistry. And so he was the first person that I thought of to play Vincenzo. So when I called him, and he said yes. It was very thrilling to reprise, that chemistry that we had on stage 20 years back. I mean, nobody knew we were going to have it or not have it in front of the camera, but it did work out for us. We were both, very happy to play tennis and have fun.
And you were in it.
Great.
So how did you direct yourself?
I was in it, and I have a great village around me. I have my sisters, they work with me, and so they were
Oh,
behind the
good.
camera. My son, my best friend who I've produced with for 30 years, Brian Drillinger. Um, I have a great team. My editor, Teferi Seifu, my director of photography, Federico Verardi, who I'd worked with before, my first AD, Marco, my production designer, Alessandra Manias, my costume designer, Lorraine Wilson. I mean, I have people that I've worked with. I just wrapped a film here in LA a week ago,
Oh.
Starstruck, a romantic comedy about astrology. Rob is in it, Rob Estes. Matthew Daddario, who also plays the son in The Italians, is in it. And a lot of my same crew is there working, right down to my wonderful second AD, Wesley. So I love, or my script supervisor, Kennedy. I love working with the same people. You find a shorthand to connect with
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Yeah,
That's
you and
great.
Steven Spielberg, same crew all the
Yes.
time. And I was going to ask you, that leads right into the next question I was thinking about asking you about the ensembles that you work with. And obviously, you work with an ensemble crew, but what about your actors? How do you approach guiding actors who already have big careers and strong identities?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting. Miranda's Victim, it was actually Donald Sutherland. It was his last movie. And he wanted for me to talk and give him feedback. I was like, what am I going to tell Donald Sutherland? Are you kidding? There's nothing that I'm ever going to tell him. What will I say? Um, I just finished working with Billy Zane. And, he looked at me and goes, notes. And he's worked a ton and he's a wonderful actor. Um, Andy Garcia. I just did a movie that's out actually this week. Tony Collette and Andy Garcia in Italy, in Puglia. Um, and, it was great to have a front seat watching them work. But I think that every wonderful actor needs a third eye, so they welcome feedback.
Uh-huh.
You just
Of
have to
course.
know what to say, when to say it, how to say it.
Well, we know
Yeah.
that Miranda's Victim deals with an intense true story. You referred to that a little earlier, and apparently kind of changed the justice system. So, what compelled you to take on a film with such emotional weight?
I was absolutely fascinated by the story. It had never been told.
Ah,
The movie that I had done prior to that, The Runner, the first scene in the movie, this teenager gets arrested for drugs. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. And I never questioned, where did that come from, ever?
Hmm.
And of course, it came from that Miranda ruling in 1965,
Oh,
7. And
what
I
year?
was well, the crime occurred in 1963, but then the Supreme Court reversed it, and now it's not fresh in my mind if it's 65 or 67.
Yeah.
Where, but the story, the movie Miranda's Victim, which you can see everywhere, including Hulu, spans the from 1963 when the crime occurred to 1973, which is when Miranda dies. Um, it's an interesting period piece, true story, and something that changed completely how people got arrested, not only in the United States, but all over the world as well. They had their own variation of the Miranda rights. And it's interesting because the Miranda rights, you don't know who Miranda is, you think maybe that's the victim, but it's not the victim. They should rename it,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think that
It's
very
kind of
few
true.
people are aware of it. We just take it for granted now.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
is a
But
huge
I have heard
undertaking.
in British crime stories a different version. They have a different version of the
We
same.
have a different version, yes.
Yeah. So I guess other countries have that. I
They
never
have
thought
their
about
own
that.
version of it, yes.
Yeah.
This was what gave birth to it. People being read their rights and letting them know they have the right to an attorney, they have the right to remain silent. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
was happy to tell a story. I mean, what were the chances of finding a story that had never been told? But that's because who it happened to, Patricia Weir, she hadn't wanted, in 60 years, she remained silent. So
Oh,
finally, she decided it's time to tell the story, and she gave the rights to George Colbert, who really discovered the story. He had the idea of telling it, to tell the story, and he is the one that spearheaded everything and wrote it and wrote the story, and was the producer of it.
Fantastic.
yeah, thanks. Um, Pivoting again here, um, balancing teaching and directing and parenting is it's superhuman. How do you do it? What's your secret to managing such a dynamic life?
Well, it's interesting you should just ask that. Every time people ask me that, I've always said I make very good lists. But a week ago, I got very frustrated because I have a lot of lists and I have to go back on my list. And I said, I have to have a better system I don't have a good system with my lists. So I
Mm-hmm.
tried doing it on the iPad, but that didn't work very well. So I just got an electronic notebook. So
Ah.
I started to put my lists on this electronic notebook. I think it's going to work really well. I'm actually really excited about it. Um, you just write it and it saves, and there's like a lot of them. I
Mm-hmm.
try to wake up every morning and stay very organized in my thoughts and make sure that I get done what needs to get done. I don't like to talk too much about doing things. I only like to do them. I'm not
Mm.
long-winded in terms of, the
So
explanation.
it's a lot of compartmentalization, do you think?
Yeah, I have people are helping me. I just, to this person, I sit down with them, I regroup. I said, you work on this, this, and this, and you work on this, this, and that. And yeah,
You must
Mm-hmm.
have very long lists.
I have very long lists, and I have long relationships. Just now, my assistant just crossed, and she's been with me for a decade, and that's also unheard of. Who hangs on to an assistant for over 10 years? I mean, some people do, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but in Hollywood, it's really hard
Yeah.
because people move on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
For
true.
sure, for sure. Well, you've coached stars like Salma Hayek, Gerard Butler, Chris Rock, and Penelope Cruz. What qualities do you see in successful actors that everyone at any age can learn from?
That's a great question. Incredible work ethic.
Mm.
Ah, yeah.
There's a very strong work ethic. You do it when you don't want to do it. And I always say I never want to do anything, but I push myself to do it all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's the last 3 weeks have been particularly, busy because I did 2 weeks of filming, and then I went into the American film market here in LA to do meetings, and those are exhausting. I mean, it's one after the
Mm-hmm.
other. Um, but you do it because you have some sort of a vision for something that you want to accomplish. And if you have the energy, which I do, knock wood, you know, to put one foot in front of the other and get it done.
So that's something you see in all those people. Is the work ethic the main thing?
I do. Well, the work ethic and the passion,
Mm.
passion,
Mm-hmm.
true passion.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have any recipe that you can give our listeners on your energy and how you maintain it?
I do a lot of different things. I really do. I throw the kitchen sink at it and more. Uh, So, obviously I
Good.
try to work out, although I've always battled a weight problem my whole life. So, but it's better today than ever. I try to work out. I do Pilates. I swim every day. That's a huge life savior for me. Wherever I travel in the world, I make sure there's a pool where I can swim.
Oh,
I
that's
like to
great.
swim in the morning. I like to swim at some point in the afternoon, and I like to swim in the evening before going to sleep.
That's
That
kind of a
is helped.
meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, that really helps me. And I stretch. I do a lot of stretching because I don't want to age in a stiff way. So
Mm-hmm.
I do the infrared sauna, I do the oxygen. And now, as of lately, these last few years, I've been doing this NAD,
Oh,
IV, which people talk about. And I mean, do I notice a visible like change? I don't know, but I do have energy. So I must say, and also I don't get sick as I used to because I
really?
What
do
does the
vitamin.
NAD stand for?
I don't, it's something that replenishes your cells. I had my
Mm.
sisters look into it. They say it's really good. It comes also in form of pills and shots and, liquid. So, but they say it replenishes your cells and it's really good for aging. So,
Mm.
I do that. I mean, I'm lucky I have obviously good skin, but
Yeah.
um, it's um, it's a combination of things. But I'm constantly trying to do things that will give me energy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about Under the Stars because I watched it and it was such fun and a real, I'm going to use the word pivot again, but a pivot from Miranda's, your movie about Miranda, the Miranda rights,
Yeah.
and What was that experience like? And filming in Italy certainly had to have been wonderful. It was such a beautiful backdrop. So, what was that experience like, and what would you want viewers, new and returning, to pay attention to as they watch it?
Well, it's a nice, easy romance story to watch. They had me at Puglia. Again, this was offered to me. And I got a call saying, how would you like to shoot a movie in Italy, in Puglia? Now, you have to know my whole childhood. I've always heard Puglia, Puglia, Puglia ad nauseum. And I was like, and I had never gone. I'd never gone to Puglia. So I was like, oh,
That's kind
okay.
of a miracle in itself, then.
Yeah, that's right. It was historical city, the
Wow.
city of Lecce in Puglia. So I was like, okay. Uh, and then, so I got the script. The storyline of Tony Collette and Andy Garcia was non-existent in the script, right?
Mm.
But I had just finished watching The Golden Bachelor season 1, which you have to know that I've never watched a reality show. It's the only reality show I've ever watched.
That
And I,
was my same story. I
yeah,
watched that, and I had never watched any of those shows before. So
I never
we
watched
share that
it.
in common, and I don't want to watch any more now.
I
I'm
don't
done.
either.
I'm done. Up
Well,
to here.
I thought, oh, well, it'd be nice to not just tell the love story of a young couple. Let's also juxtapose it and tell the story
Uh-huh.
of a more mature couple. So
Mm-hmm.
I created that whole thing. And then called Andy and said, Andy, read this. And is this interesting? He said, yes. Then we get Tony Collette, Alex Pettifer, Eva Di Domenici, a lot of Italian actors. Of course, I'm shooting, I'm in Puglia shooting, and all of a sudden I look at my phone and the news is the Golden Bachelor couple gets divorced. As, as I've created this whole hopeful relationship in your middle age, I was like, oh, bummer.
Oh.
What irony of life. But it's just a beautiful setting, and it's a love story. Now, a movie that inspired me for that movie was Before Sunrise,
Oh,
Julie
yeah.
Delpy and Ethan Hawke. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a school trip with my child a few months ago, and it's pitch dark, and there's a campfire, and people are playing music, and all of a sudden I hear a woman with a French accent behind me speaking, and I turn around, and it's Julie Delpy, and I said to her, well, you're not going to believe this. I said, I'm doing the editing on this movie, Under the Stars, but your movie, Before Sunrise, about two people falling in love, inspired me for Under the Stars. And so, we had a nice conversation. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it
was
was a
that was a
nice
beautiful film. I love
thing.
that
Yeah,
film.
yeah, Before Sunrise. I loved it. I
Yeah,
Yeah.
loved it. It was like
amazing.
you were
That
with
whole
them falling
trilogy.
in love. Yes, that whole
Yeah.
trilogy. Absolutely. So anyway, I hope people like Under the Stars. It's just hitting the
Oh,
platforms this week. So I hope people like it, and
That's good. What
it's
platforms
such
is it
fun.
on?
We need romances these days.
yeah, easy stuff to watch. There's so much heavy stuff. I did go to the DGA yesterday and saw a movie that won the Palme d'Or at the Festival de Cannes. An accident, something. Iranian filmmaker that is making the movie hiding from the government. A
Oh,
very
Oh,
important, good film, but heavy. You walked out. I had nightmares all night. So I think we have to balance it with the lighter stuff.
yes, you're
yeah.
absolutely so right in doing that and bringing
Yeah.
that to the public. And you've mentored so many aspiring artists. So, what advice do you give young and not so young filmmakers about starting in the industry today?
Take the time to learn the craft and don't want it to be patient. Don't feel like you have to get on the fast lane. It's okay. I always do this analogy, when I'm driving and somebody passes me because I'm going too slow. And I may very well be going too slow, but they muscularize and they honk and they pass me, and we both end up at the light at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, so
Mhm.
then, why did you muscularize and get all upset when you could have gotten there anyway? I can remember it was a documentary when I was raising my kids that I watched called The Race to Nowhere, which was,
Yeah.
you don't have to, you take it easy. But that's a message that my dad, I think, instilled in me as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Beautiful.
great.
I love that
Yeah,
advice.
a great point. You
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you inspire me of so many creative projects and passions. So, what's next, Michelle, for you? And also, how are you navigating your current stage of life as you keep expanding into new chapters?
Well, I try to stay open to every possibility. Um, I my family's in New York, so during the holidays, I go to New York. But this, of course, is also the time where it brings up having lost your parents, which is always a
Mm,
hard time when you realize you're an orphan and you've lost both of them. Um,
yeah.
but I have two wonderful kids. I have a great family. Um, I go to New York and I see tons of theater, and we all go and do things, go to museums, we go to the movies, we play games. A very strong family life around me, lots of love. So that brings me a lot of joy. And yeah, just try and navigate everything in the moment as much as possible. And then, of course, I have a movie that I'm in the editing room for, Starstruck, a rom-com about astrology. Super fun, like really funny. And then I'm prepping for a movie that I'm going to shoot next year called Helios, which is a sci-fi thriller. And people are calling me and offering things, and I'm reading scripts, and I'm,
Mm.
preparing. And there's, I think, there's a song that my sister played when we drove down to Laguna Beach, which is one of my very favorite places in the world.
Mm.
And the song is "The Best Is Yet to Come." And so
Ah.
I
Hmm.
really believe that. I believe that as good as it's been, the best is yet to come.
Oh,
I play that song a lot. I love it. Sounds like you're very comfortable in your stage of life now, but looking forward constantly still. And thank you so much for joining us today. Your passion and your creativity and your constant reinvention are so inspiring.
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for inspiring us too. And to
Thank
our
you.
listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on the Late Boomers podcast and leave us a review and share it with someone who needs a little motivation to start their next chapter. Thank you, Michelle.
We bring you
Thank you
new
very much. Thank you.
we bring you new conversations every week with people proving there's no expiration date on reinvention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, it's never too late to boom.
Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at
lateboomers.us.
if you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers. Go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.